Hey everyone, how's it going? Alright, so this is my Incredible Hulk speed painting. So the last video before this one, I showed you guys how I color. So this is just me coloring the rest of the Incredible Hulk using those techniques. So right here I'm just uh, filling out the bulk area of Hulk's upper body. I kind of started before I started recording. I forgot to hit record, but I've already selected the teeth and the white of his eyes. I dumped some like an off white for his teeth, so they're kind of yellowish, kind of, but not too yellow. And then of course just pure white for the white of his eyes. So I'm just going over here. So here's another technique I used for coloring areas. Um, Basically, just go over the area in the paint in your paint layer. Just go over the area and don't worry about going outside the lines. And then grab an eraser and then just clean it up, and then you're done. And this has the advantage of it paints underneath the black lines, so you don't have to go back and fill those in. Um, the disadvantages is if it's a large area, you're going to be doing a lot of paint stroking with your pen. Um, Another one is just to do the same thing, just fill the area, but in this time go back to your line layer, select the area, and then hit the inverse. You can inverse your selection, so then that way you can paint outside the selected area instead of the inside. That's another quick tip, but you it doesn't paint underneath the black lines, so you will have to unselect or make the line layer invisible again, and then hit those areas where the black lines were. Uh, so here for the feet, I'm just gonna do I think the same method that I did for the upper body. I'm just gonna select the area and then just fill it fill it with the paint, or let me see. No, it looks like I'm doing the uh, the broad stroke and then select the area and then just erase the outside. Hit the inverse of the selection. I'll make a separate tutorial on how to better explain this, because this is going way too fast. It's kind of hard for me to explain what I'm doing, and and so you guys can visually see uh, what I'm doing as I'm explaining it. But so here I'm just touching up the little areas that the selection tool missed, and going over these little areas here. So now I'm going to move on to my low shade color, and I'm going to put them in the same layers that I created when I made the face, so there's no need to create new layers. So now, specifically where to put the shade or the shadow, I mean, that's something you either have to visually see three-dimensionally in your head, or I don't know. It's very hard for me to explain where to put shadows. For me, I just I just visually see it in my head. Um, you know, uh, I see it. I see the drawing as a three-dimensional object, and so I know that, hey, if this leg here is underneath his quad right there, then it's gonna cast a shadow there, and also underneath here where the chins are, and then see I started erasing that shadow there on that calf muscle because light is gonna hit that. So here I'm just with the blend tool, getting rid of those hard edges to get that airbrush look again. And again, because it's on a separate layer, I don't have to worry about blending my colors. It's just actually just putting a really nice fade on my shade color without blending it to my flat color. So this is just the technique that I did, or I developed because I mean, like I said in my last video, I'm not a colorist. I really don't consider myself a colorist. Um, uh, this is what works for me. Um, uh, Different people, I'm sure, color different. I'm sure there's some people that actually like to blend the colors together. To me, just it works better this way, where I keep it pretty much separate. Because it also helps me, like if I want to edit my colors, um, it's easy for me to just change the shade around or something. I can always just erase it, or just make it go invisible and create a new layer and then put some different shade on there or something. So this really works out for me. Another thing you can do when applying the shade is because when you use the blend tool and you start blending, it will smudge outside the your line work. One thing you can do is just go to your line layer and select the area, and then go back to your shade layer and then start blending. And because you only have a certain area selected, it won't escape that area. So that helps when it comes time to clean up your artwork. You'll see here towards the end, there will be some paint and some of that blended shade outside, and so that could save you some time for when you do cleanup. Another thing I'm doing too is as I moved into the your mid shade, I started choosing a smaller brush, because I don't want to cover too much of a large area. So I start choosing a smaller brush to get into tighter places without without going over too much area that I don't want to be in. So here I go again with the blend tool. Oh, so this process, the whole coloring process, or the whole coloring process that you're going to see here in this video is, it took me about an hour, a little bit over an hour, but pretty much an hour of work. I'm not too sure how fast I sped it up. I just, in my Sony Vegas Pro, I just compressed it, and I didn't put any numerical value, so I try to make it 25 minutes long. So this video is 25 minutes long, so yeah, it beats sitting through 1 hour of watching this. So now I'm going to move into my dark shade, I believe. And again, I'm going to choose a smaller brush, because again, I don't need to hit so much large area. So, and with the dark shade, it I know it kind of looks blue, but believe me, it's the correct shade of green. It really makes the drawing look really pop. So I'm only hitting the areas that I think will have the darkest shade, so like the bottom of the foot and underneath the abs here. And some of these areas that I'm hitting, they will, when I start blending them, they'll kind of fade away because there's so little paint. But again, that's fine. If it was that little amount of paint, then maybe it didn't need to be there. So I'm not too worried about it. Yeah, I tried to get some some shade. You see how his fist is right there in front of his chest there, so that green on green, um, to really make that fist stand out like three-dimensionally, I try to put some darker shades of green behind the fist just to make it stand out. um, I might or I will make another video once I finish doing the speed paint of Wolverine. um, I will do a final touch up where I'll clean up the artwork, and then I'll also um, do some correct some line weight. So I'll put some thicker black lines, and I'll do that around the fist just so it'll pop out more. So here's, yeah, I'm just blending some of that dark shade, and some of it, like I said, is disappearing, but that's okay. So I think, so now the final step is highlights. So, so yeah, see, there's some of that smudging that, or blending that bled over outside the line. So, so all in all, looks good. So I just turned on the highlights. You can see some on the face, but so now I'm just gonna grab my lasso and select piece by piece certain areas that I want to see a highlight on. And like I said in the previous video, it's better to select the individual areas, because if you choose a too large of an area and you hit it, you might get overspray on some areas that you don't want a highlight on. So, and when you'll see here, like I chose the bicep separately from the shoulder, and that was because if I'd have chosen that whole area, it wouldn't have turned out that good. So here I'm choosing the whole pectoral muscle, and then but I'm just putting the highlight on top. So when I was doing this, I know there's these little ripples on the pectorials itself, like right there on the sternum, and I figured, let me try something out. So I wanted these little areas here to have highlights on them, and it turned out pretty good. I'd never done it before, so I figured I'd try it, see what it looks like, and it turned out pretty good. I ended up keeping it. So now I did blend away the hard edges of it. Some people probably would have kept it, but I didn't. I maybe put too much highlight there. It looks a little too white, but that's fine. See right there how I selected the whole shoulder, but it didn't quite hit these little areas here that I wanted. These little rippled areas on the shoulder. So I went back and selected those little small areas. Now here I figured, oh, that was too big of a selection, so I went back and deselected it, and then I grabbed that, and then I'll hit this little area next, and that's good. Of course, blend away the hard edges there. See, I noticed here that one of these shading areas wasn't blended good enough, and so it was very easy just to by trial and error figure out which shaded area was not blended correctly. Selected that layer and blended it, and it didn't affect any other color, because the colors are in separate layers. So here I'm choosing the abs separately. And again, this is something, the hard edges here, they could have stayed. It actually looked pretty good, but I I just, something about those hard edges I don't like seeing. So some light on top of the knee and on top of the calf muscle here. Uh, that other knee right there is not sticking out straight enough like the his right knee to for me to think that there would be light shining on top of it. So that's why I didn't put any light on top of that knee. Again, this is something you have to uh, like visually see in your mind, I guess. And it just comes with practice. I think it just comes with practice. So so now I turned the palette, the color palette, invisible, and I created a new color palette. And this is where I'll put the purple for the pants. And you saw there, I pulled up the comic book for the reference, and the only thing I picked up was the flat color. And the remaining 3 shades, you use that color wheel trick where you spin the dial. Don't move that square in the triangle. Again, something I explained in the video before this one. And so here I selected the pants, but what I noticed was these little frays that I drew, they're opened. So this is a trick. What you want to do is you want to create a new layer right below your line layer, and you take the color that you're going to use. In my example here, it's purple, and I pretty much close off the open areas, right where the paint is seeping out. And then what you want to do is you want to merge those 2 layers together, but you want to put the black lines on top of the purple lines. And so when you merge the black lines on top of those little purple lines, what you have is you have one layer, and your openings are now closed, and they're closed with the color you're gonna spill into the area. So when you zoom in there, it looks like they're it doesn't look like a black line is closing off the area. Again, I'll make a separate tutorial on selecting areas and filling areas, where I will go over some of those tricks that I've discovered or seen other people use, and they worked out pretty good for me too. So here I'm just filling in the paint underneath the black lines. Yeah, for some reason the selection tool, it has this like safety margin of like 1 pixel or so that it won't go anywhere near a black line when you hit the selection. So here I'm having trouble. My shade, for some reason, my shade, low shade, is not showing up when I color the pants. What it ended up happening was I ended up putting the paint in my line layer. So see, big mistake. So I have to, luckily I wasn't too many moves away from undoing it and going back to this. So it's a flat color, so I go to my flat color layer, I dump the color, and so now the purple flat color is on the flat color layer. Yeah, it's very important that you stay within your correct layers, because again it makes editing a lot easier when you keep these colors separate. So now I'm going with the low shade, and I'm gonna put these low shade colors in the same layers that my green low shade colors were. Now you see there, right there, that off color there, that was because my purple low shade was mixing with my green low shade. Now, in retrospect, I probably should have created a low shade for the purple and one for the green, but I don't know. I was just getting lazy, and I said, you know what, forget it. I'll just put it on one layer, and we'll just go with that. But yeah, in retrospect, um, I could have probably created a separate layers for the purple pants. So the green would have its own layers, and then the purples would have its own layers. But I didn't want to create so many layers. Like I said, I was getting lazy, and so I just said, you know what? I'll just be careful, and I'll just put the shade where I won't touch, or I'll try not to touch the green shade areas. And especially when using the blend tool, because I have that blend tool set really big, really wide, it sometimes will dip into the to the green, and when the green and purple mix, it makes this muddy color. So here I am with the dark shade. And again, the same as the skin, the dark shade. I'm not putting it in as much area as I did the other shades. I reserve that for the what I would consider the darkest areas. So yeah, like I said, once I finish coloring the Hulk here, I'm gonna color Wolverine the same. I'm gonna use the same methods, but once I have him colored up, um, I'll do the speed drawing too. I'll put it up in case if any of you guys want to see that. But then after I do that, I'm gonna make another tutorial video on how you can put texture on your drawings. So in this one specifically, I'm gonna put like a denim style. You know how denim it has these little lines. If you Google denim texture, you'll see denim has a certain texture to it, and so I'll teach you guys how you can put that on your drawings, because putting texture on your clothes in your drawing, it really makes it look really three-dimensional, really real. It gives it a nice look. So here I'm putting some highlights on the pants, and in the certain areas, not as much as the skin, but certain areas on the pants have highlights. I changed the color of the paper to orange, which is a color I'm not using at all on this drawing, so it would make little open areas pop. And you'll see here in a bit, I'll zoom in. See, I'm looking for anything orange. Notice how the white of his eyes and his yellow teeth, they're not showing anything orange because I colored those in. Now the hair here, they'll in another video, where the one where I'll show you how to add denim texture, I'll also be adding certain details to like his hair and his skin, and so it'll just make your illustrations pop a little bit more. Some tricks that I've picked up. So here, see, there's some green outside the line, so I'll need to do some cleanup. So there on the pants, those little frays, I can see orange there. So I'm gonna grab the base, the flat color purple, and just start filling in these little orange areas that didn't quite get color. Yeah, this is the hardest when you have little open areas like this. Like you want to fray the fabric. It just, you know, the paint doesn't know where to stop. So anyways, that is the completion of the Incredible Hulk speed painting. Give it a thumbs up if you liked it. And the next one will be Wolverine speed painting. So I hope to see you in the next one.